Hello everyone, welcome back to Soccer Showdown. Joe Archino here with Martino Puccio. We've been waiting a long time to get back into here, so let's get right into things, Martino. We are back with the UEFA Champions League. We are at the final 16. It's as exciting as it gets right now. Barcelona, though, of course, how could you not start off with them? I think it all is a little bit of a shock to the system when you saw the headlines that they lost 4-0 to PSG. I mean, Martino, let's start first off. I mean, Barcelona, I saw a very interesting stat. In 60-plus years of European knockout competition, nobody has overturned an 0-4 first-leg deficit. So let me ask you, will they be the first to do it?
No, I think this one's done. The fact that it is because they didn't even get an away goal. And the fact that it was the first leg, they got beat 4-0 away. They didn't get an away goal. Thiago Silva didn't even play. That's one of the best defenders in the world. Hopefully, if PSG gets him back for the second leg, I don't know how Barca can come back from it. I think PSG is ready now. They have it in their heads that they can beat this team. I mean, 4-0 is pretty convincing. We haven't seen Barca this miscombobulated in the Champions League since Bayern thrashed them 7-0 on both legs a couple years ago. So I think it's too tall of an order to ask Messi, Neymar, Suarez to go and overcome.
There's been some people who've made the argument that this might be kind of the end point of this era of Barcelona. Now, some people might be overreacting from the loss here, but I'll ask you, we've seen losses like this happen for Barcelona before. Sometimes it's just been a bump in the road. Sometimes it has been a giant marking point of something coming to an end. So what do you think? Is it just that, a bump in the road, or is this really a sign of what's to come?
No, I think it's just a bump in the road. I mean, after they lost 7-0 in those couple of legs to Bayern, they come back next year and they won the Champions League. So it doesn't really matter to me that much. Their top three players aren't even at the age of 30 yet. They just have to fill in a couple holes, like I've been saying. Their defense isn't as good as it should be, especially for a team of that stature that's competing for the Champions League title year in, year out. If they make a nice signing at center back and maybe replace and get even a better midfielder to control in front of the defense, then they'll get back to normal, because it's Messi, Suarez, Neymar. It's the best trio in the history of the sport. They'll be fine.
They've got some firepower, and so does Real Madrid. Real Madrid gets it done 3-1 against Napoli in the Champions League just the other day. Martino, an expected result against Napoli, or is there something else here? Napoli doesn't seem like they're really that down in the dumps here. If you listen to all the reports coming out of Italy, it seems like they very well believe that they have every right to bounce back and find a way to get it done.
Yeah, and the important thing that we were talking about with Barca's loss is that they didn't score a goal away. Napoli did. And it's only a 2-goal deficit. They're going back to Napoli, but you got to remember, the Bernabeu is probably the most difficult place to play in Europe in the first place. It's definitely up there. It's top 5. So I don't think they should get that discouraged. I mean, they should only be a little bit worried about all the shots they got off. Bale didn't play in the first leg. Madrid's going to have him back for the second leg, so it could be troubling. But they definitely have a shot, but most likely they won't be able to pull this one out.
Now let's go back to Barcelona for a second, because I still think this is such a shock to the system for us all, for Barcelona to be out of this competition so early. I think it changes the landscape of this entire competition. When you look at it moving forward, we talk about so often how difficult it is to win this league back-to-back. No one has done it since AC Milan. It's been a while. It's so hard to win this competition back-to-back. But Martino, now Real Madrid, now they don't have to worry about that pressure of their giant rivalry of La Liga being in there. I mean, does this bode well for them to possibly repeat?
Well, the thing is, their mentality shouldn't be whether or not who's left in the competition. It should be about who they're facing. And yes, it might be easier for them, the road, they're not having to play Barcelona, of course, but I don't think it would have been that big of a deal to them anyways. I know it's a big rivalry, don't get me wrong, but the fact that you're used to playing them so much, they play twice a year anyways, they play them almost every time in the Copa del Rey final. I don't think it would have been that big of a deal, but I think the fact that they're not going to have to face them, and I think the only other team that's really on par with them is going to be Bayern at this point, unless Barcelona pulls the biggest miracle maybe ever in the competition's history. I don't really see them having that much competition, but then again, they really can't overlook teams like they did Juve a couple years ago when they got knocked out.
Well, you kind of set me up for my next one, but we go to Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich, a 5-1 thrashing of Arsenal, which I think leads to that question. Is this kind of a sign of what's to come for Bayern Munich? And most importantly, the manager there, Carlo Ancelotti, because I think when we try to look at managers, we have to look at obviously people who have won it before. Well, he hasn't just won it before. He's won it with different clubs before. So there's no reason not to believe that he can't get it done with Bayern Munich. But I'll ask you, Martino, can he get it done?
Of course he can. I mean, he was the guy who got La Decima for Real Madrid. A drought that was almost 10 years when he took it over. He won the Champions League there. He's won it twice at AC Milan, arguably two clubs that are much bigger than Bayern. Bayern's been there, done that with these players. It's Philipp Lahm's probably last go-around, so I think they're going to want to win it for him. And just the thrashing of Arsenal, it's 5-1. It's not even close at the competition. I think Arsenal and Napoli, if you look at it, they're kind of on par in terms of talent level and success at Europe and what you thought they would do. But at the same time, Bayern and Madrid, it was totally different performances. Madrid really let Napoli hang around, whereas Bayern just didn't even give Arsenal a chance, and they're going home packing.
Well, Arsenal fans, now we're going to talk about you. Please be nice in the comments. Please, I beg you to be nice. But obviously, Arsene Wenger is the guy who all the attention goes to now, his future at the club. Now, reports today are saying that it's still in his hands. His contract runs out at the end of this season, but all the reports are saying that it's going to be up to him what he decides to do. Martino, it's been a long time since the club has won anything significant under his watch. Is this kind of the final nail in the coffin on the Arsene Wenger era at Arsenal?
I think it is, but it all depends on the plan. And I think the fact that they're leaving this decision up to Arsene Wenger says to me that they don't really have a plan. Because if they're just letting it up to him, then they're basically saying, we're good either way. We don't really kind of care as much, or we don't have that much of a plan. Kind of familiar to the Lakers. They just kind of hired Magic Johnson. They're like, okay, Magic, just go. It doesn't seem to me like they have a plan. They haven't bought in that one killer player. I mean, Alexis Sanchez and Özil have been great for them, but they haven't been Thierry Henry level where they go into the Bernabeu and win in a game like that. When was the last time we saw that? The Invincibles, when they went undefeated in the Premier League. No team has done it since, or probably even come close to that. I think it's time to turn the page, and it's not the end of the world. It was a great tenure for him, but he probably lasted a little too long. That'll leave a bad taste in Arsenal fans' mouths for sure.
Well, you talked about the Premier League now, so let's stay with the Premier League. And hey, we've got a couple of new props on here. We got a little bit more of a budget on this show now, thankfully. But let's stick with the Premier League. Martino, I think the situation there just shows you how this is the best league in the world. Chelsea in first place with 60 points. Manchester City behind them with 52 points. You have then everyone else kind of funneling in behind there, but it's from 2 to 6, there's such a competitive gap there. So the question I think that's on everyone's mind is, who is the next best club after Chelsea?
For me, it's Liverpool. I know you're not going to like this because you're a Man City guy.
I got no trouble. I'll have my say.
But it's just because of, I think there's a better plan with Jurgen Klopp and the guys over there in Liverpool. I think he is a better coach than Pep. I know, whatever, kill me, do whatever you want.
I'll flip this
do whatever you want, fans. But I think it's about doing more with less. And I think Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp have less talent than Manchester City or even the Uniteds or the Chelseas and teams like that. But they're just playing up to par. He has them ready to play. I know it's going to be a difficult schedule coming up for them. They have to play Arsenal and Leicester in the next couple weeks. But Arsenal's kind of off this tough loss again in the Champions League. They don't know what direction they're going in with Arsene Wenger. So I think they got a good shot of getting the 2 spot.
I mean, look, my answer would have been very easy if Gabriel Jesus would have been healthy at this point, because he's undoubtedly reignited the fire in Manchester City. But now that he's going to be out for a significant period of time, most likely to the last month of the season, I don't think that I have that same level of confidence. I will still say Manchester City, though, only because I think when you look at them on paper, they do have the most talent in the world. And I think more than anything, the defense has certainly started to get much, much better. But let's shift gears a little bit, Martino, to the next one is, in the Premier League, who is the best player in the season right now? And I think this was an interesting topic I wanted to include in today's show, because when you look at it, it's been so easy the last couple of years to pick out right off the bat. This is the guy, undoubtedly, he's going to win it. Jamie Vardy last year, runaway. Eden Hazard the year before, you run away. This year, that same level, it doesn't exist. So You start with us off, and then I'll give mine. But who is your Premier League Player of the Year right now?
I think it's obvious it's got to be a Chelsea player, but for me, the two constants the past 2 seasons, best team in the league, it's been Leicester and now Chelsea, right? We're expecting them to win the league. Who's the one player that's played on both teams? N'Golo Kante. For me, he's been so great of a midfielder, kind of out of nowhere too. Considering his age, he's 25, 26 years old. He comes in, he wins 50-50 balls, he's physical, he makes the right pass, not just key passes, the smart ones that lead up to the build-up of play, that get goals for guys like Diego Costa or Eden Hazard. So I think the fact that he's able to do so many things on the field for the best team is what makes him Player of the Year for me.
I mean, look, I think all you need to know about is look at Conte and then look at what's happened to Leicester City this season. I mean, if you had to pick a player who probably didn't get the credit he deserved last year, it was probably him other than Vardy and Mahrez. But he has been that missing link, and Leicester has certainly missed him, and Chelsea has thrived off of it. I also, of course, have to go with the Chelsea player, but I'm going with Diego Costa here, and I think to me, he's kind of been that guy, and there hasn't been a whole lot of down moments for Chelsea, but it has always seemed like this year when they've needed an answer, he's been the answer. He's got 15 goals, 5 assists. He's up there in all the key categories. And I think most importantly, the thing that, sometimes he's a guy who can cause trouble. He can give managers headaches. But when you need a goal in the Premier League, there's not a lot of guys who are better than Diego Costa. And that's why, to me, I have to go with him. But we kind of shift gears a little bit more, and our final topic today is Antoine Griezmann. He has been so heavily linked to the Premier League, and I think obviously Man United, of course, being the biggest rumor mill of him possibly ending up there, but he's not so sure about a move to the Premier League. He did express very heavy doubts about the weather there. And certainly England, I mean, if you turn on the Premier League on a Saturday or a Sunday, you're going to see a lot of snow and you're going to see a lot of rain. That's just the way it is. So Martino, I think first question is, are his doubts worthwhile, and would he be able to adjust to the Premier League like so many players struggle to do?
I think that if you're a great player, and if you think you're a great player, it doesn't matter if it's raining, if there's sunshine, if there's snow, if there's hail. If you are that great, you can play anywhere, anytime. And if he doesn't think that, is he really worthwhile spending what? You got to break how much? At least $60 million you're going to assume you got to pay for this guy, and he doesn't think he can play there because of the weather? Look at a guy like Zlatan. He comes in, he's 36 years old. I know he has a different mentality probably than any player in the history of the sport. But the fact that he goes in there, and even today he scores a hat trick for United, even though it's in the Europa League. But my point being is that he doesn't let anything affect him. He just goes out there and he plays his game and he produces. And I think that's the mentality Griezmann has to have. But if he doesn't have that, would you even bother touching him? Because I wouldn't at this point.
I think that's a good point. I think the other thing to touch on here is he's a young player. A guy like that, when you look at all the losses, this is a guy who was in Europe, in France, in the Euros this summer. They come up short. In the Champions League, they come up short. Is that a troublesome mindset? I mean, look, you can't obviously put all the blame on him. It was fantastic leading up to those points, but this is a guy who was lost on a big stage, and that's not always easy to overcome.
No, it's not. But the important thing, again, is it's having great players just don't have great skill. It's a great mindset. You can even look at Gianluigi Buffon when they lost to Milan on penalty kicks in the Champions League final. The guy came back 3 years later. They won the World Cup. He was the best goalie by far and the best goalie of all time. So I think he's just really got to stick with it. And it sounds like to me, because you mentioned the missing of the penalty kick in the Euros and then the Champions League final, it sounds like it's getting to him a little bit. And it's kind of weighing down on him, on his mentality, because that, like, as great of a player as he is, that's worrisome to hear that he's worried about the weather. I mean, come on. I think that's probably one of the last things you got to worry about. Maybe just the players who are around you, and maybe even the coach. That's understandable. But the weather, I mean, come on. That already is a loser mentality going into the league. That's not a good look, in my opinion.
Weather here is fine, folks. Thank you for listening to Soccer Showdown. Joe Archino here with Martino Puccio. We'll be back the next time.